Hello and welcome to the ME7 podcast for Look Back Live, episode 3. It's been a hectic March for the Gills after securing 11 points out of a possible 18. Neil Harris's men have all but secured safety in League 2. Join us for the next hour on Look Back Live to discuss a crazy month. Yes, welcome back to Look Back Live. Today I'm joined by Luke Teachin and James Cleal.
Hello.
Gents, good afternoon. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Very well. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a crazy month for Gills. James, I'll come to you first. 11 points out of a possible 18. It could have gone better, but it's been a pretty successful month. I think fair to say, and we sit obviously 12 points clear of that relegation zone as we sit here today. Yeah, all in all, after a crazy month, it's been pretty decent for Gills.
Yeah, I think so. If you were grading it, you'd probably give it a B plus. I'd say it's fine. As yesterday's result shows, we've really got to address the away form. But I think certainly at home we look very, very good. Fun to watch again, enjoyable to come to games, and I think that's what all of us wanted, before the Gallisons took over. But yeah, the away form does cause me concern. But yeah, generally quite happy with the month.
Yeah, Luke?
Yeah, I would agree. I'd say a B plus is probably a fair grading. Obviously, the highlight for me was obviously that 94th minute winner last Saturday against Carlisle. I think if you were sitting there pre-Christmas to beat a team that are chasing automatic promotion, who was going to beat them 1-0 at home, you wouldn't believe that was going to happen at all. Some great home performances. Like James said, we need to address the away form, which I'm sure we'll go into further detail later on that. But yeah, a good month all in all. Yeah,
I mean that away form, it's an issue. It's obviously only 2 wins all season on the road at Rochdale and Colchester. Obviously, if we where we want to be next year in terms of playoff places and automatic places, you have to pick up wins on the road, or at least turn losses into draws and pick up points. It's a problem, isn't it?
It really is, and I think it's a problem that needs to be addressed this season, in all honesty. The last thing we want to do, even though we are hopefully going to recruit several new players in the summer, the last thing we want to do is go into next season having a losing mentality away from home. So we need to address that at the end of this season. You're absolutely right. We need to start, turning some of those defeats into draws. Yesterday absolutely should have been a point. The game management at the end, it's not great. I think the concession at the end is harsh on us. I think it's a really good winner, but I think we can do more. But I think generally we need to stop it becoming a mentality thing. You look at the Stimpson year a few years ago when we didn't win away all season. That becomes a monkey on your back, and that's really hard to get rid of.
Yeah, and I think something that we've mentioned on our Twitter spaces is all about kind of continuing the momentum. And I think Harris said it in his pre-match conference on Thursday. It's all about momentum. When we play away from home, it seems that we have zero momentum because we can't get a result over the line. I think if you look at some of the away performances, and again we talk about game management in the fact that I thought we was going to go in and get the winner on Saturday, especially after we scored and how we was attacking, and we make a few changes and we invite the pressure straight back onto us. It's like, again, that's something that Neil needs to look a bit deeper in and see, did he get his game management exactly right? But to score an equaliser that late on, we should never have lost that game yesterday. And I think you're right. it needs to be addressed this season, because you can't go into, if we don't win a game, how many more away games have we got? Three, four?
3, I think, isn't it?
That you don't want to be going into next season where us fans and even Brad himself and obviously Hess, Kenny, Neil have got these aspirations of kind of either going to Wembley or getting automatic, like Brad said, is that you can't go off the back of another 3 or 4 away performances not picking up a win, because that's just going to be on your back next season. And we want to start strong, don't we? So we need to carry that momentum, the home form, as I mentioned in my pre. We need to move that home form into the away form, and like James said, it needs to be addressed. Hopefully, I think we could give Northampton a good go. We seem to play better against a lot of decent sides like Carlisle, Stevenage. We played at home here, so hopefully we can do that next weekend.
Yeah, it is interesting. Obviously, yesterday was a pretty harsh defeat on Gills after that second half resurgence. It seemed like from what I was watching, that first half we were torrid. We were pretty bang average first half, and second half we then brought on Ollie, and it then seemed that we gained that identity back of playing up to Ollie and playing in and around him. James, Neil come out after and was pretty damning in his post-match conference, should we say. One particular individual that he decided to dig out was Tom Nichols, which was surprising, but he said about him giving the ball away near the halfway line and then sort of tracking all the way back and us conceding from it, but he made the point that it should have never been given away in the first place.
Yeah,
he was pretty damning about Tom, wasn't he?
He was, and I'll say it now, I'm not a fan of that at all. I really don't like players being dug out publicly. Say what you want in the dressing room, absolutely. Ball them out all you need to, but do not do it in public. I don't like that. I don't like it when top level managers do it. I don't like it when Sunday League managers do it. It's not fair, and it's I know it's very early, but it's the first step to dressing room disharmony. You can't do that. You can't dig individual players out. Tom will know that he made an error, and you know it doesn't need to be dragged out in the press. I know that at full time, you know, emotions are running high. It's probably never a great time to give an interview, to be honest, because journalists love it because they're getting raw emotion, they're getting truth. But I think, you know, when you step back and you think about it, I think it isn't great to do that. And Tom's been one of our best performers. He's one of my favourite players. I think he's a great forward to have at the club. He's intelligent. Some of his work is terrific. He's a terrific player, and he'll know he made an error. He doesn't need to be dragged over the coals for it, to be honest with you, and I don't think that's fair. So I didn't like that, but I understand why Neil was frustrated. It was a frustrating manner to lose the game. Definitely, we should take a point from the situation we're in, and as Luke said, you know, we could have gone on to win the game, but a point minimum we should be taking from that. So it is frustrating, but don't dig out the players.
I think he has got a bit of form of that, though, hasn't he, Neil? Especially if you look at his, as you said, his post-match conference after the last game last season.
Oh, yeah. 7 won't be here.
7 won't be here, and he ended up with 5 or 6 in his first start.
I think 11. 7 he ended up with.
It was 7 he ended up with. So I think that's something that probably Neil will look back on and admit to himself. He's not the finished article, and he's got things that he says that he does get slightly wrong. But I think the point where he also said about that he had 2 opportunities to score in the second half, and if you want to be in my team, you've got to score chances like that, which I think again was slightly harsh considering how many goals Tom scores and the assists that he's got so far. But yeah, you can understand the frustration. Obviously, we saw it here last week with a 94th minute winner, but arguably over the 90 minutes, we deserved to win that game. Again, it was another second half strong performance from Gillingham. I don't think the Barrow defenders knew what to do with Ollie Hawkins when he come on, and surprisingly, he actually got 2 really weak fouls given for us, which was nice to see because it makes a change after the refereeing we've seen in the last couple of weeks. But also, I think I've got to give a bit of a shout out to David Tutunda because I thought he was brilliant when he came on. That pace down the left-hand side made some quite good few challenges as well. So, it was maybe Tristan deserved his chance over that cameo that he had last weekend. He deserved to start. But, Ollie Hawkins would change the game for us massively. Yeah, it's just very, very frustrating. That, like I say, I thought we should have gone on to win the game. I think if we'd have put a few more crosses into the box, I think they would have crumbled under the pressure of Hawkins up top. But we didn't. We lost the game, and I think it's all about how we move on and react to to Good Friday and then away to Northampton.
Yeah, I think what I took out of Harris's comments yesterday was that it was a sort of pressure makes diamonds situation, where I think for me it was a case of he wants to put pressure on this group to try and get the best out of them. Whether it works or not it remains to be seen. But I think for me, he knows as well as anyone else that next season is going to come with a high amount of pressure, and that expectation is not to stay in this league next year. It's to get out of it. It's to get out of this league. And I think his case is that you either want to be a part of it, and in order to be a part of it, you need to handle this. Because if you're not going to be a part of it and you can't handle it, then kind of you're not for me. I think Tom definitely is for us. 100%.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's a situation. What I don't want to happen is that Neil feels the pressure and he then places that pressure onto the players, because if he starts doing that, then it's going to go Pete Tong.
You look at some of the best managers, like him or loathe him. You look at someone like Klopp. They take all of that nonsense onto themselves. They take all of the flack. They take all the pressure. They say ridiculous things. They keep the pressure off their players. They take it all on, and that is how you do it. You look at we look at the result last week when we scored that wonderful last second winner. Look at the response of the manager on the previous on the opposite opposing team. Textbook example of how to conduct yourself post match. I thought he was magnanimous in defeat. I thought he made some really good points, and I get the raw emotion at the end. I do get it. I get the frustration. I understand that, but. And again, only Neil knows his players. We don't know his players personally. Neil knows his players personally. He knows how Tom can deal with that. If Tom can deal with that, and I'm sure if he thought that he couldn't, he probably wouldn't say it. But at the same time, I personally don't like it. I don't like players being dug out.
I think that's he's mentioned a few times that he hasn't kind of given it the Fergie treatment at half time recently. I think over the last week or so, he started to come out in his post match and said that he's given it a bit to the players and told them what's what. But if you look, when the pressure was slightly off, well, not off when we was kind of back-to-back winning games, and he said, obviously being a second-half team, he said that he didn't lose his temper in the change room. I think yesterday he's just lost it a little bit, and I think that's when he needs Kenny Jackett and Hess to put an arm around him and say, we need to deal with this situation a little bit better in the future. But it's good that he has got them role models in the club now. That
definitely.
If we're seeing it, and I assume a lot of other people potentially feel the same, that Hess and Kenny might feel that way as well, and just put a gentle arm around him and say, look, we need to deal with that a little bit better. But I say he's even said he's a work in progress as a manager. He's still a young manager. But you may just. I would have been I would have done exactly the same if I just conceded the 94th minute winner in that manner.
Yeah. I think one positivity, Conor Masterson. He's been. We're going to come on to him a bit later, but it's a cracking header.
Yeah.
It's another excellent delivery from Macca on that right hand side, and he plants it straight on Connor's head. For me, that was the one area that I felt as a defender he had to improve in his game, was attacking balls into the box. He did it yesterday. It was an outstanding header from Connor. He's ticking every box to not become a Gillingham defender next season. In terms of, I think other teams are going to be extremely, extremely interested in that man, aren't they, James?
He's far, far too good for League Two. But if you could offer me one signing for next season, it's Conor Masterson. I think he's fantastic, and I think he's got the potential to do what John Egan did for us. And I really think he can go on to play at quite a high level. I think QPR are missing a huge trick. But, he's terrific. And I think you're right. He needed to be more of a presence in the opposing box, and he started to do that. He scored the other week. It's his first goal. He follows it up with a fantastic header yesterday. Really, really good goal. And what was most interesting to me about that was also, and this shows the mentality of the team, the way that goal was celebrated. It wasn't celebrated, if you watch it back, it wasn't celebrated like very close to the end equaliser. They picked the ball up like they were 3-1 down and ran back to the centre circle, and it was like, we're going to go on and win this game now. And I really like that. I loved that about the celebration. I thought, that they thought the job's not done now, as it turned out to definitely not be done. But the header itself was fantastic, and I think Connor is a real shining light this season. Bringing him back in January was a great decision. I don't think any of us saw it coming, really, to be honest, and he's been an absolute revelation. It's completely. I thought he was great before, but I think he's played even better this time round.
Yeah, he's incredible. And as you mentioned, he's far too good to be in League Two. Something that I picked up on that we've discussed on previous shows is that when we lost 2-0 to Bradford, he was the first player that come up to the reigning men and is putting his hand up apologising. Yeah. He's got to be on the recruitment side of things. He has to be on the top of the list of offering whatever money he wants, 2.5-year contract. He needs to be the first player that we sign permanently. And arguably, I think Dom Jeffries in 3 or 4 years potentially would be captain of Gillingham if he stays this long, and on how his talent is projected, he possibly not be. But if Conor Masterson signs a permanent contract, he'd be my captain next season without a question of doubt.
Yeah, I'm just going to put it to you both about sort of rounding off yesterday. I think for me, does it sort of scream volumes of how far this Gillingham side has come, is that we've gone away to Barrow and we feel extremely disappointed about, one, the manner of the defeat, two, sort of we've come out second half, we've been the better side, we potentially should have then won the game. They've been, in theory, up until yesterday, fighting for the playoffs, and it's another one of those that we're competing right to the end with top half sides, with a group that, in theory, we've added 10 or 11 players, but we're probably still 6 or 7 players off that group. Does it sort of scream volumes how far this dual side has come?
It does. I think, personally, I always go with the viewpoint that, as a lot of people do, any point away from home is a good point. So I would absolutely have taken a point yesterday. So the disappointment for me comes in losing that point, definitely. To get back into the game the way we did, to then lose from there, that's where the disappointment comes from. I didn't expect to go and beat Barrow yesterday, but I did expect us to be competitive from minute 1 to minute 90, which we weren't. And that's where, and that's frustrating as well. But yeah, we have come a long way. There's no doubt about that. I know we don't want to look back, but you go back pre-January, none of us would have even bothered to tune in, would we? We'd have all just thought, well, that's 2-0 loss or 3-0 loss, and we're not going to score, and we're certainly not going to take anything away. So what's the point? But at least now we're at a point where, and this is huge steps. At least now we're at a point where we expect to be competitive, and we expect to take something from the game, even if that is a point. But the frustration yesterday comes from throwing that point away, because we did.
Look, Barrow are no mugs. If you look at their home league form, they sit 7th in the home league table. They've got arguably promotion home form. I think in their last 10 games, it was a real mixture. I think they won 4, lost 3, and drew 3. So they're no mugs. But like I say, I think the raise in expectations is when you just beat Carlisle 1-0 at home and dominated pretty much for 90 minutes. The away team doesn't have a shot on target until the 85th minute. There's a level of expectation that you're going against a side that are obviously below them, and fair play, you are away from home. But from that performance, we had a full week in training, and to start that poorly is very, very disappointing. And I think that's something that, again, we'll probably discuss on that, but something that massively has to change. Away from home, we can't keep having a poor like Neil said, it was an awful first half.
Yeah,
you can't keep doing that, and it needs to be, when we're at home, we're on the gun. We're like, let's shot out the gun from the first minute, and that may be a mentality thing. They might have to look into that into further detail within the close season, kind of that mental aspect of going away from home. But yeah, Barrow no mugs, but arguably how we performing, and as everyone said, the level of expectation in this club has gone through the roof.
Yeah.
And the performances need to match that. Like you said, a point away from home is always. I had it as a 1-1 draw yesterday.
Yeah.
I think if it was a 1-1 draw, we'd be having a completely different conversation right now. So
Absolutely. But I think you're absolutely spot on as well. It is a psychology thing. If that game yesterday is at home, we win that game.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? Okay, let's move on to reviewing March then. It's been we've taken 11 points out of a possible 18. 2 draws starting the month at Harrogate and Stockport. We then follow it up with a 2-0 easy win here against Tranmere. We then go away to Walsall and lose 2-0, and then we end the month with back-to-back wins against Crewe and Carlisle, making it 11 points out of a possible 18. Let's start at the start of the month. I got closer to 30, and it was the day of my birthday. It was Harrogate away. It was certainly not one to sort of even touch on, to be honest with you. A pretty boring 0-0. One that we walked away from disappointed that we'd not picked anything up out of it. I think remembering that Aiden missed the sitter after 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But yeah, Luke, we go back to the same thing, don't we? That they're the game. They are the prime examples of next season where we have to be going to those sort of teams and coming away with 3 points.
Harrogate especially. I did think we was going to win that game, but it was. I think that was the first game that we tried O'Brien, Nichols, and Hawkins up top, and we only had 1 shot on target, but we've only had 4 shots on target in the last 4 away games, so there's kind of a similar theme going on there. But again, let's say we've spoken, the level of expectation goes up. I would have had us down to beat Harrogate. Obviously, we just didn't come out of races that day at all, and it was quite a dismal display. But yeah. We still took a point, which I still weren't overly happy about. Didn't ruin my Saturday evening. But yeah, next season that should be a 2-3-0 win. Yeah. In my opinion, anyway.
I think if O'Brien puts that chance away, I think it is. I think we go on from there definitely, because goals breed confidence into teams. We've seen it a million times. But yeah, it wasn't one for the purists, and I think that. But as you say, look, a point away. If we get a point away every game and win every home game, we're going to win the league probably. So, I think it's, but they are the games that need to be addressed. Harrogate at that point, I think, were really in and around it with us, and I think we really need to be taking points off of these teams definitely. So, it wasn't a great start, but a point away from home, can't argue with it really.
Yeah, we then flip it to 3 days later, and we travel to Stockport on a Tuesday night, and we know now that Harris deliberately had set up for a point. He brought in Tristan for his first start. He brought in Ethan for his first start, who, looking back now, they were both outstanding that evening. Ethan especially. We'll move on to Ethan a little bit later, because I want to speak about Ethan and his potential at the football club. But yeah, it was a point away from home that we look back on that was an outstanding point for us.
Great point. Yeah.
And one that we look back on and went, okay, now we can see the potential of this dual side, because if we can do this and we can go to these sort of sides and nullify their threats, and they do have threats, Stockport. It was an excellent point to start the month, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if Harrogate away is a disappointing point, Stockport is the polar opposite of that. It was a great point. A game I fully expected us to lose, especially after the performance on the Saturday. I didn't think we would get anything there at all. So, absolutely delighted. Really pleased that he went with the changes. I think that showed, sometimes there is a slight criticism that perhaps we don't have a plan B or plan C. And I think Harris clearly showed that he can be proactive with his changes, and he was in that match. It worked really well, and it was a great point.
No, definitely. It was a bit of a nail biter, because towards the end it seemed like we was slightly hanging on. Yeah. But no. Like I say, a great point. It showed, obviously, you said we're going to talk about Ethan Coleman a little bit later, but he was a standout performer for me alongside Will Wright, and I think Will's having to prove his worth as such more a little bit, considering how many goals we shipped before Christmas. He hasn't really had a look in. And you can still see that Will's an integral part of this squad, and I hope he's a Gills player for many years to come, so I really like Will Wright. But yeah, him, Will Wright, Ethan Coleman and Tristan Abrahams were stand-up performance. Glenn Morris pulled off some great saves, and it was one of them games where you just had to grind out a point for 90 minutes. It was like we had 10 men and was playing against 11, but it was, fantastic point, and full kudos to Niels because he got the tactics spot on that night.
Yeah, this one was an interesting one for me. Let's move on to Tranmere, the third game of the month. Considering where they were in the league, I think they were 12th at the time. I thought they were the poorest side that I'd seen at Priestfield all season. Yeah. They were pretty darn pathetic. They didn't give anything at all up front, really. I think Connor and Max could have laid on the beach and put out a sunbed and had a cocktail while they were at it. They offered absolutely nothing that afternoon. And it was a pretty routine 2-0 win for us. Obviously, goals of Sean Williams and Connor Masterson, like you said, James, earlier on. But was it a case of, Luke, us being really, really good that afternoon, or was it a case of they were just really, really bad?
I'm going to sit on the fence and say it was a bit of both.
Yeah.
They didn't offer anything. But again, I think coming to Priestfields, especially after the run of performance that we've had in January and February, people don't like playing here. They don't like coming here. Like you look at like Carlisle, people don't like coming here, and we delivered. But I think it was one of them games that you look back and say when they absolutely destroyed us away from home, it was a completely different sides. Obviously shows how well we recruited. But yeah, I think it was that was a great. I enjoyed that day a lot, just considering what they did to us away from home. But I think, like I say, bit of both, but probably more in the favour. I thought we actually played really well.
Yeah, they took us apart down there, didn't they? They really did. I mean, we were rubbish at the time, to be fair, but we didn't know that then, did we? We thought just a blip, but they did take us apart. So it was great to see, us flip that around and do the same to them. It was a stroll, wasn't it? I mean, it was a really one of those really enjoyable matches when we went 1-0 up. I knew we were going to win, and I knew we were going to win before we went 1-0 up, because it was just that sort of performance. They weren't at it. I don't think. I think you're right, Luke. It was a bit of both. They weren't at it at all. We played well. I think they probably had more to give. Just one of those days. Let's face it. We're in League Two. Every single team is going to have one of those days in a season, and that was just one of theirs, I think. But we did play well.
I think it was Lewis that mentioned it a few weeks ago. When in League Two, you just have to turn up and be slightly better on the day. And on that day we were slightly better, and I think you can see that, like yesterday we weren't better, and we got beat, especially like I said in the first half. But I think that's one of them. Give Lewis a bit of a shout out for seeing one of his lines there. But yeah, we were just better on the day.
I think for me, I walked away from that afternoon thinking, you know what, we're going to be all right. We're fine. We're fine this season. It was a case of that. If that's what League Two is offering, we're all right. And you know what? If that's what League Two is offering, we're probably going to be all right next season as well. I thought they were pretty poor, but this is where the expectation sort of rose, and we then travelled to Walsall, and it was the prime example of the fact of where we need to improve next year. And we go back to that Barrow defeat yesterday. We went to Walsall, and after being so good the week before, we were so bang average the week after against Walsall, who had not won since the turn of the year.
It was very Gills, wasn't it?
I'd said I got the feeling that it was going to be a case of they'd not won in the league since the 1st of January. Who's the best team to give you a present that when you need it at the most time? And it's us. It was that exact example, wasn't it?
It really is. I mean, you can always rely on Gills to break a hoodoo for you. Absolutely. We're renowned for it. I think pride comes before a fall, and it was. If Tranmere had one of those days against us, that was one of those days against Walsall. It just was. We weren't at it. But I think this is something that's something we need to take into next season. Harris talks about the levels and the expectations that he has within the group. And I think absolutely spot on when he talks about that. If you hit those levels, if you're at it from minute one against any team in this league, you've got more than a fighting chance. You just said it, Luke. You've got to be a bit better. Yeah. And if you are, you've got a great chance. You then sprinkle in a little bit of quality on top of that as well, and you've got a win. You've got a championship winning formula there. So it doesn't take a lot in this league to be that great. You just got to hit those levels, and we didn't hit them against Walsall.
Yeah. Well, look at Stevenage. They've got like average average away form this season, and they're looking at automatic promotion. Yeah. But it's the thing that annoys me is consistency. You can't be consistently good one week and then consistently poor the next, especially away from home. Like, I don't know what happens on that coach, but like they need to get the DJ in there from the home game to get them going. But yeah, for me, it's just consistency, and it seems to be when we're away from home, we're consistently bad.
Yeah. It's a difficult one. Are we putting too much pressure on this Rainham thing that we've got going on in terms of, as the group? I can imagine at half-time, Neil Harris's half-time chat here is, right, you're shooting towards the Rainham end, you know what to do. Yeah. And that's all he has to say. He doesn't have to pretty much put anything else on it. It's the Rainham end are going to get behind you. You know what you have to do. You know how good you are at the Rainham end. He doesn't have to say much more.
Yeah.
Here, where, okay, you're shooting towards £400 a barrow away. You've got to step it up now.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that the players become too reliant on it, and then without the Rainham end, we can't possibly win, that kind of mentality.
Maybe.
Well, it's possible. I mean, you'd like to think they're not that mentally weak, but yeah, I mean, it's possible. And it's something that, you know, we know that we've always called the Rainham end the 12th man, but then every team's cop end says that, don't they? Yeah, exactly. So, and these players have all played for many different clubs. They've all had their Rainham ends before, and they will have them afterwards. It's part of football. So no, I don't think so, but potentially it could be a thing. But again, we're getting into the sports psychology side of things, and I think this is where it is so important that we get this addressed sooner rather than later, because we do not want this on our backs come the start of next season.
I don't know if we have one in the club in a minute, but I'll definitely be hiring a sports psychologist for pre-season. Yeah. Not even just for pre-season, for next season campaign, because there is going to be an element of pressure that probably some of these players have never felt before. I'm talking about the younger players like Dom Jeffries, Ethan Coleman. You know, they're going to be probably the two youngest ones that are bridging the gap to be, well, especially Dom, but Ethan looking to start next year. Obviously, we're hoping he's going to be a slot in for Sean Williams. Yep. But these younger players are going to have a massive expectations on their back next season. And they need to be delivering away. And it's not just for the younger players, it's the older, the more senior players that, even like Sean Williams has been fantastic. And Tim Diang has been fantastic since, well, more Sean's been fantastic over a few weeks, but Tim's performance has dropped significantly over the last couple of weeks. Yep. I think that's something they're definitely going to have to look into.
Yeah, I think sports science is really important. And at this level, maybe you might think, well, no need for that, is there really? But yeah, if we've got the budget and we can afford it, why not? If it gives you even, you know, a 1% of an advantage, then absolutely go for it. It's got to be worth it.
Yeah, okay. We end the month obviously with back-to-back wins against Crewe and Carlisle. Here we have spoken in length about our home form, but two wins that one I expected, one I didn't. I cut my leg celebrating that Sean Williams last-minute winner, and I fell down 2 rows, so it was well worth it. But yeah, it was a cracking way to end the month. Yeah, wasn't it?
Definitely. The Crewe game, we didn't play particularly well at all. I think it was it's very reminiscent of the Bradford game, that Bradford capitalised on 2 poor mistakes, scored 2 goals. We capitalised on 2 mistakes and scored 2 goals. And then looking at the Carlisle game, played completely differently and dominated for 90 minutes. So it's very 2 different performances, but who cares? Still got 6 points out of it. And we saw some great, unique individual performance. Sorry, should I say, from kind of, I think Eddie Jones used to call them the finishers when they come on. It was with Aidan O'Brien and George Lapsley, who I thought were fantastic when they come on against Crewe. I still don't quite understand how we've got arguably one of League Two's best players and he can't get in the starting 11 at the minute, which baffles me. But yeah, a great way to finish the month with 6 points.
Yeah, it really was. The Williams goal was, I think that was my favourite Gills supporting moment in probably the last 5 years, maybe. I mean, that's saying something, isn't it? Crikey. But yeah, a great moment, a great 6 points. The Lapsley point is a great one. It's a bit of an enigma. I think at the moment it's a classic case of a square peg, and he needs to go in a very particular square hole, which I don't think we have in the side at the moment. But he's quite clearly a very capable, fantastic player, especially at this level. We've just got to find a way to get him in there and start getting prone. I mean, he scored a couple of goals for us, but he's been. I mean, what are you going to give him? Overall, probably a 5.5 out of 10, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair comment. Okay. Yeah, we're going to take a little break. Yeah, the season tickets got released for the 2023-24 season, next season. It caused a bit of a stir, but yeah, Fish announced on social media the other day that they've sold well over 500 season tickets in the first few days of sales, which is an excellent return, and it shows that the fans want to be a part of the journey. So yeah, here is the advert that has been shot by our lovely friends at Block.
Good morning, Kent. Good morning, Medway. And of course, good morning, you Gills fans. Today is a glorious day for a match, and we are ready to welcome the boys back at the Priestfield.
And to everyone in the ground tonight, enjoy the game!
Will you be there when the giant awakes?
Welcome back to Look Live. Yeah, obviously you've seen a wonderful season ticket advert that Block did for the football club. It actually gave me goosebumps watching it. It was pretty good, and I understand that you turned it over in 24 hours. So wow. That was excellent editing by our wonderful friend Nick. So well done, Nick. Yeah, let's move on to the individual performances of the month. We start off with the captain, Sean Williams. I think he's probably had his best month in a Gill shirt for me. I think he's been outstanding.
Absolutely. I think Willow's turned it on since probably the Leicester game, to be honest with you. He's been a completely different player. I thought up to that point, we'd signed a complete donkey who was past it and over the hill and just another journeyman. But no, he's been fantastic, hasn't he? He's popping up in both boxes, scored some really important goals, some really good goals. The Carlisle winner, as I already said, was my favourite Gills supporting moment of the last 5 years. So thank you, Willow, for that. But yeah, he's been terrific. I think he's a real calming head in the midfield. He's got no lack of quality there as well. Sometimes a little bit Hollywood with his passing, but I think generally we can forgive him that because he's a vital player for us.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. From the Leicester game, I was making the same statements. I don't think he was particularly good pre-Christmas, and then something switched within him, and he's arguably become probably one of our top 3, top 4 standout performers each week, especially at home. But yeah, he's been phenomenal, and I think, as we've discussed in a number of our spaces, that I think he's pretty much wrote himself at a year extension on contracts. Yep. Whether that being as a more of a kind of influencer role for Ethan Coleman, because I think they're very similar players. Ethan's got a heck of a lot of potential, and Sean's got a heck of a lot of experience. So there could be a nice kind of mentoring role for him there, which we're probably doing already, that we don't really see. But yeah, for me, he's definitely got himself another year at the Gills. But I don't write the checks, but I would give him another year.
Yeah, obviously Luke mentions about Ethan Coleman. Every time I've seen him in the Gill shirt, I've been massively impressed with him. Calming on the ball, technically brilliant, wins tackles, breaks up play, can move the play on, always looks to play forward. I think for me, he has to be a regular starter in that Gills midfield next year.
Completely agree, and really, really surprised. If you listen to the Leyton Orient fans, again, what had we signed? But yeah, I mean, I've only seen him a couple of times, but he looks calm, he looks assured. He's one of those players that just receives the ball, turns, moves the ball on, and it's really, really nice. It's nice to watch. It's simple football, and let's be honest, football's a simple game. I like players that play it simply, and Ethan Coleman's one of those players.
I think he gives us another dynamic as well, because he's tall as well.
Yeah.
He's really tall. Like I say, I think it'd be quite interesting to see how he develops over the next 12 to 18 months. I think obviously you mentioned about the Leyton Orient fans. I think the Bromley fans were absolutely skewing because he was on loan, wasn't he?
Yeah.
There before, and they was absolutely gutted that he went. But yeah, another real find by obviously Kenny Jackett. I think he signed. Did he sign him, or did he come through the ranks?
Yeah, I think. Well, Kenny put it to basically Neil and had said that you need to sign him. Yeah. You need to sign this guy.
But what a find?
Yeah.
What a find. It'd be interesting to see, obviously slightly off topic, for Jaden Clark, be interested to see what type of qualities he's got, because obviously he's another find, another youngster. So if he's invented the same, it's cut from the same cloth as Ethan, I think we could be absolutely fine in that midfield for young talent coming through. Yeah,
I think it's interesting with Jaden because he hasn't had a single appearance yet, has he?
He was in a friendly that he scored in
Kent Senior Cup.
Okay,
I think.
okay.
Friendly, was it friendly?
Yeah, no, Kent Senior Cup against Faversham, was it?
Yeah, something.
Yeah, and I think Neil did say that he was a little bit behind in development. So it'll be great to see him come on, definitely. And like you say, if he is anywhere near the player that Ethan Coleman clearly is, we've got another gem. And I think it just shows how important Brad coming in and bringing in that team, the recruitment team, the director of football and all that sort of stuff, how important that's proved to be. We've unearthed some gems in a very short space of time. Those guys, Kenny and Andy, only came in. They came in themselves in January, I believe, didn't they?
January,
yeah, exactly. So they did a fantastic job straight away. Look what these guys can do with they're already scouting for pre-season. Look what we can do in the summer. We can do some really good business, I think.
I think touching on Ethan as well, you've got to give him massive shout, because he's arguably keeping Gillingham's captain out of the matchday squad.
Yeah.
He's in front of Stuart O'Keefe.
Yeah.
So, for a young boy doing that for a very experienced player of Stewie's level, I know he's obviously had his issues this season, but he's still probably itching at the bit to get back into the matchday squads. He's keeping him out week on week, so yeah.
Yeah. Gone are the days of Jordan Green and Bruno Andrade rocking up at Folkestone Invicta on trial, and we're having to sign them because we've got no money. Those days are gone. One of the one of the midfielders that we haven't discussed, but we are going to discuss, is Tim Dieng. I feel for me, since Swindon, he dropped off it, a little bit. But I think the back-to-back games in Crewe and Carlisle, we saw a bit more of what Tim can bring to this Gillingham side. What have you made of Tim, James?
I think that he's one of those players that you don't notice a lot of the time, a lot of the work he does. But seeing as he came with the tagline, the Silky Frenchman, I've seen too much silkiness about him. His best game was the Swindon game, I thought. he was terrific in that game. And he's obviously scored a goal as well. But yeah, he's definitely dropped off since then. There's quite clearly a player in there, so we're not going to write him off just yet. But yeah, I don't think he's probably performed quite to the level I was hoping that he would, to be honest with you, with the reports he came with.
I think he'll be an integral key to next season. He reminds me of, obviously, you have the comparisons of when you've got like Gilberto Silva made Patrick Vieira the player he is, because he goes about his business quietly, doesn't really seem to be noticed. I get them kind of vibes from Tim, because obviously Sean Williams is the standout midfielder at the minute, scoring goals and spraying balls about. He does a lot of the nitty-gritty work. Like you mentioned about Ethan, he literally gets the ball and passes it on to Sean or Macca or Lapsey, whoever's playing in midfield with him. But yeah, he's does his business very, very quietly. But I think he will be an integral key to next season. He's on a 2.5-year contract as well, so we'll see. He's got to perform next season to get another extension. So yeah, I'm happy with Tim. I'd give him, since January, maybe like 6.5, 7 out of 10.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think he's set the world alight, but he's been consistent.
I like his celebrations to camera when we win at the end.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you can keep them coming. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah, last player that we're gonna cover. He's come under some criticism, I think, in a fair few weeks, but he keeps sort of delivering assists. Is Macca, Alex McDonald. He's made it clear as day in his Kent Online interview that he wants to be a part of the promotion push next year. But he's one that he gets criticised by Gills fans.
I'd written him off. I must admit. And to come back the way he has, and to put in the level of performances that he has done, is phenomenal. I think he's been a really important player for us this season. I think he's played really, really well. But yeah, I don't get where the criticism comes from. I love Macca. I think he really plays with his heart on his sleeve, which is what we all want as Gills fans, what you want as a football fan. But he's done so well to come back from not only the injury, but let's be honest, he was an overhang, a hangover from a very poor era of Gillingham. He was one of the few shining lights in that era, probably, but he came from a real losing mentality. So to come into this team and perform in the way he has, I think it's fantastic, and he's played really, really, really well. I think. I don't get where the hate comes from.
I can see where it comes from, because I think when you've got a player of George Lapsley's pedigree on the bench, arguably, I think if Macca hasn't had the amount of assists that he's had the turn of the year, do you think Lapsley would be starting over him? Arguably, yes. So I can see where that criticism is, but he is, out of that side, Mr. Gillingham, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's exactly the player that we want to see playing for us. I think he was slightly at fault for Barrow's first goal yesterday. We're tracking back, but yeah, he's a player that, even if he's not getting into starting 11 next season, with somebody who's got that ability to deliver a ball in the last 20 minutes, if we're 0-0 at home, and we need something to happen, then he's the type of player that you want to be bringing on. I don't think he's, for aspirations of playoff promotion, I don't think he is the type of player that should be in the starting 11. I think there's definitely better out there, but I definitely think he should be in the squad. He's
a squad player, absolutely, all day long. But I disagree with you slightly, and I don't think he's keeping Lapsley out. I don't think they shouldn't be competing for the same position, really. In all honesty, to me, Lapsley is a number 10. He's Paul Shaw. Yeah, that's what, and that's what we need to find him a place. Not what Alex McDonald does for us.
Yeah, that would need for Neil to change his formation, which
he
won't do in a minute.
Well,
so
no.
he wants to play a certain way. So
yeah, it's an interesting one that arguably one of the best midfielders in League Two can't get in the Jill side. It's quite interesting, isn't it?
It's really, really weird. And it's harsh. I don't want to say it, but why did we sign him?
And he can't be cheap. Like he's got to be on a fair whack a week. And I think he may be more towards the project for next season, but I don't know why you'd sign that type of player if he's not going to come straight in.
Agreed.
But Neil won't change that formation. He'll either goes from the 4-4-2 with the diamond, or he plays with 5 at the back, and that's it. But he says in his, in January, I want to sign all these players so I could play all these different formations. I've only seen 2.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one, and again, it might be because he doesn't trust the players in behind him that they need. That if he's going to play in B10, you lose that certain control in the midfield. But I don't know. It's strange. It's very. It baffles me.
I think for me, ahead of next season, that midfield really doesn't change. I don't think.
No.
Midfield wise isn't our problem. I think our problem for me is the 2 fullbacks.
Yeah.
I think they're the problem.
Agree.
And then I think off the bench, in terms of when the prime example yesterday, when Ollie comes out the team, what do we have? We don't have really anything else, because we've decided to play. Well, obviously, Harris decided to play O'Brien in the 10, which he has done at Millwall, and he's been effective as of it. But for me, I think our biggest problem is the depth in that squad.
Yeah.
Is that when we're making 2 changes or 3 changes to the team, is that you are seeing the effect on it. You look at the likes of Bradford when they come down to us. You look at the likes of Stevenage when they're making 4 or 5 changes to the team. There isn't an effect on it. You look at yesterday. We've made 3 changes to the side, and there's a huge effect. We lose a complete identity of it.
We haven't got any wingers.
No.
We haven't got any, and arguably we've got no pace.
Yeah.
No wingers and no pace in the sides. Well, in the squads, should I say? Like
other than Abrahams.
Than Abrahams, but for to not have any wingers in your squad, it's strange. Once again, it's strange. I know obviously we move on to the recruitment, but
yeah.
I actually think we've got a winger. He just doesn't know he's a winger, and that's David Tutonda.
Yeah.
I think if we're going to keep Tutonda, I know that's a huge issue for a lot of people. If we are going to keep him, absolutely not as a fullback. But I think you can push him up the pitch. I think he can do some damage for us, definitely. I think there's a player there.
Yeah.
Definitely going forwards.
Yeah.
Definitely going forward.
Yeah.
He's got skill, pace, not a bad delivery. Obviously, that all depends on how well Lewis Page does.
I forgot about him.
Yeah. So but there's got to be a reason why he's not even making the matchday squad. If they're seeing something within training and they don't want to risk it and moving on until next season. But I saw him last Saturday and asked how far away is it, and he's match fit. So
is he?
It's an interesting one because obviously got that option there as well. But we need. Like I said, I think we've invested very heavily in the first 11, and obviously we need. I think, like you're right, Che Alexander's a squad player, David Hunter's a squad player, so we need 2 new fullbacks, 2 new starting fullbacks. We need a couple of wingers, and I still think we need an out-and-out goal scorer that's going to get us 2025 goals again. If you look, obviously we've mentioned Bradford already.
Yeah.
Look what they're doing at Bradford. I think he scored nearly 40 goals already this season. That's what we need. But we shall see.
Okay. Let's round it off with the last little point then. 7 games to go. Player of the Year contenders. I've got my 3 down that I've said. I've gone for Glenn Morris, Connor Masterson, and Dom Jeffries as my top 3 to win Player of the Year. Who wants to go first at their top 3?
Glenn Morris.
Yeah.
I want to stick Connor Masterson in there, but I don't think you can do it since he's only been here since January. Sean Williams. Can I have Glenn Morris again? Let's be honest, it's Glenn Morris.
Yeah. Okay. Luke.
Aidan O'Brien. No, I'm joking.
That's just to make him sign the contract.
Yeah. Glenn Morris, Max Amer, and Sean Williams.
Yeah, fair shout.
Yeah, that's. I forgot about him. I think for the turnaround, he deserves.
I think
a shout.
Dom's drifted off, isn't he, through injury, and he hasn't really seen him over the last 4 weeks.
Yeah,
is it 4 weeks. But apart from that, he's been. I said when we in like January he was going to win Player of the Season, but on the way he was going. But yeah, he's definitely one for the future. But yeah, they're my three.
Okay. Yeah, happy with that?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, when's Jeffrey's contracted to? Do we know?
I think we spoke to Fish, didn't we? I think he's got another year extension. He's got a year extension.
Yeah,
so, but I'd be tying him down to a 3-4 year deal. There's definitely some sell-on value there for sure.
Definitely.
Okay. Good way to round it off. James, Luke, thank you for joining me this afternoon.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
No problem. That is the end of episode 3, Look Back Live. 7 games to go then, as Gills look to mathematically secure that safety in League 2. 12 points clear, I'm sure it's going to be absolutely fine. Our next Look Back Live and our last one of the season is going to be at the end of May. Thank you all for watching so far this current season. Neil Harris's men have taken it to 12 points clear of the Sky Bet League 2 relegation zone. And I'm sure with the last 7 games to go, we'll mathematically call it another season in Sky Bet League 2. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.